Hello, parents. Welcome to the Masterful Parenting Podcast. I'm Anne Alvares, parent coach, school counselor, and mother of two. Do you sometimes struggle with your parenting role? Do you notice that sometimes you're repeating patterns that you learned in your own childhood? Maybe you are carrying childhood pain that has not been healed, and you notice that it is showing up in your parenting with your own children. Perhaps you yell or get frustrated easily. Maybe you are directing them or telling them what to do all the time, and you notice that your actions are affecting your relationship with your children. Well, parents, I totally understand this. I came from childhood pain and I learned how to be a relational parent with my children. And I can teach this to you as well. This podcast is all about learning how to heal the childhood pain that we are carrying so that we can foster healthy relationships with our kids. Join us every week for a new show, and we will dive into the healing and the fostering of healthy relationships with our children. Hello, parents. Welcome to the School of Humankind workshop on the impact of unrealistic expectations in our parenting. I'm so glad that you could join today, and I'm very, very excited to help parents. So I'm going to show a PowerPoint, and then I will be talking through the PowerPoint. But at the end, I want to leave time for questions for you parents. So if you have any questions during the workshop, you can write them down. And then at the very end, I will give you time to ask any questions that you have on the presentation. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so from the beginning, we'll start. Okay, so um, School of Humankind, Unrealistic Expectations in Parenting. And I'll just do the slideshow from the beginning so you can see the full screen. Okay, here it is. Okay, so I want to just tell you about me first before we delve into the topic. So my name is Anne Alvares. I'm a parent coach, a teacher, a school counselor, and the mom of two. And my children are 24 and 14 years old. So I've been through the teenage years with my oldest, and I'm going through the teenage years currently with my youngest son. And I have a passion to help parents break the cycle of their childhood if they experience childhood pain and learn to become a relational parent because I've learned that relational parenting actually works. And it is where our children can actually really, really thrive. But I'll tell you a little bit more about that after. Okay. So, what are unrealistic expectations? These refer to like high standards and demands that we put on maybe ourselves and on our children that maybe they're not ready for, or they're not at the developmental stage that they can do those expectations. And a lot of times it revolves around academic achievement, doing well in school, getting A's, doing all of the hard courses. It might be about behavior, that they're not supposed to be silly. They're supposed to behave all the time. Or it might be about their personal achievements, that you want them to make a certain league in hockey or advance in basketball or something like that. Maybe it's a scholarship. You put a lot of pressure on getting scholarships. So, personal achievements, these are high expectations, and maybe they are unrealistic because maybe your child is not ready or doesn't want to do those things. So, that's how we know. Okay, so how do we know we have unrealistic expectations? Okay, because they're unrealistic expectations you may have on yourself or your children, then you feel a pressure and you feel stressed and you can't relax. Maybe you feel irritable or anxious or less patient. with loved ones because things are not done the way you want them to be done, or not done perfectly the way you say they should be done, or you're not tolerant of mistakes. Maybe you compare yourself or your children to others. Maybe you say, "Oh, I should be getting my master's degree because everybody that I know has theirs." Or maybe you're saying to your children that, how come Johnny is getting straight A's and you can't get those? Okay, so that's comparing. And it can lead to jealousy and insecurity and resentment in relationships when we're being compared to other people, especially when our kids feel that we're comparing them, maybe even to an older sibling who is very academic, and maybe the younger sibling is not, which was the case in my family. But I'll go into that a little bit more. Maybe you cannot accept yourself completely because you haven't done X, Y, or Z, right? Maybe you can't relax until you've done those things. And your children are not accepted as they are because it's not good enough that they got a B in English. They should have gotten an A. Okay. And this is conditional love, right? When we are evaluating our children from their performance, then that is conditional love. Unconditional love is no matter what you do or how you behave, we love you. Okay. And that's where kids thrive. Kids thrive with unconditional love. And that's what they need, not conditional love. But when you have these unrealistic expectations, then you are loving your kids in a conditional way. Okay, when we have unrealistic expectations, it can lead to conflict. It can lead to disagreements and blame and tension. When parenting challenges will arise because our kids, maybe they don't want to share with their parents because they know their parents are going to be disappointed that they didn't get an A in that math test. And maybe they don't want to tell you things about their academics because they feel the pressure to perform. They feel the pressure to strive for perfection, really. And it reduces our self-esteem, right? It damages self-esteem because we start to feel like a failure when we can't achieve that unrealistic expectation. We feel inadequate, and it affects our confidence and our kids' confidence and their mental well-being and their ability to maintain healthy relationships, because now we don't have healthy relationships when we are placing demands on our loved ones and even on ourselves. We're not having a healthy relationship with ourselves when we have these high expectations that we cannot meet. And we might be neglecting our individual needs. We might be prioritizing meeting these expectations over our own personal needs and desires. We have a to-do list that needs to be done before bed, and we're going to do it even though we're super tired. What's the need? The need is to sleep. The need is to take care of yourself. But you neglect your needs because you have these unrealistic expectations of yourself or your children. And this leads to burnout and resentment, which can strain relationships. And our kids will neglect their self-care as well, and our own personal growth, because when we're not feeling good, because we expect so much from ourselves and we're not taking care of our needs and we're not practicing self-care, then eventually that is going to lead to burnout and even resentment and not liking ourselves. It's going to affect our self-confidence. And it's the same with our children. If they are feeling this pressure and staying up late at night to do homework because it's not good enough, it's not perfect, then they're going to burn out because their expectations are so high and nothing they're doing is good enough. That is the mentality, right? When you're parenting with unrealistic expectations, our children start to adopt this perfectionism, and feeling like nothing that they do is good enough. Okay, so it really impacts relationship with our kids. It creates emotional distancing. Okay, our kids will start to distance from us when they feel this pressure, because you're tense, you're expecting too much. Um, Maybe your child feels like nothing they do is going to measure up. They're never going to be good enough for those expectations. And that creates emotional distancing because you don't want to be around someone who's constantly pressuring you and making you feel like what you're doing is not good enough, right? Not accepting you for the way that you are. And unrealistic expectations, specifically for kids, and I know this because of counseling for over 16 years, school counseling teenagers, um, that come from homes where there's very high expectations, unrealistic expectations, that they get anxious. They have anxiety and they feel inadequate, and it affects their self esteem and their mental health. So, these unrealistic expectations in our parenting can be very damaging for our children. Now, Nancy Rose is a parenting coach and the author of the book, Raise the Child You've Got, Not the One You Want. And she says, ask any child who failed to live up to his parents' idea of success, and you'll likely hear that they never felt good enough or that their parents had expectations that they could not live up to. And perhaps you grew up with that kind of parenting where you felt like you could never measure up. Nothing you did was good enough. Maybe you were being compared to a sibling. I share a story when I was interviewed on Emily Penrod's Win-Win Women show, that my brother was very, very good at school. He excelled academically. He had a photographic memory. He didn't even really have to study to get his A's. And I did not have this photographic memory. I struggled in school. I had to work hard for my C pluses, right? So I felt very inadequate. And then growing up, my mom placed a lot of importance on my brother's academic ability. Like she praised him, she looked at his report card, but she never looked at my report card. She never gave it any attention. And I had the message as a child that I'm not good enough, that I can't measure up to my brother's abilities, right? My mom didn't say it directly, but I felt that as a kid, that I wasn't as smart as him. So that is what I'm talking about when we are parenting, that we might be coming from that place, that our parents gave us the message that your work isn't good enough, or you can't measure up, or you're inadequate, right? Maybe not intentionally, but that's the message we gave ourselves as children. So having unrealistic expectations affects our kids. How does it affect our kids? They might be perfectionists. They might feel like their work has to be perfect or they will not turn it into the teacher. And they might work hours and hours and hours to make it perfect. I'll tell you, my oldest son, when he was in school, he was turning into a perfectionist. And I realized that he was only in grade 5, but he would stay up late to do schoolwork. And he didn't like his work. He had like crumpled papers. in his room, and I would go to his room and say, what's going on? How come you're still, doing your schoolwork? And he'd say, oh, Mom, it's not good enough. I don't like it. And so I had a light bulb moment then. I started to wonder, I was like, okay, so where is this coming from? This perfectionism in him. Maybe it's from me. I started to evaluate, like, am I judgmental, or am I overly critical of his work, or what am I doing that's causing this perfectionism? And then I also worried about it a lot because I didn't want him staying up late and not feeling good about school and having this enormous pressure. So I worked super hard with him to give him the message that it's good enough, honey. Like, your effort is good. You don't have to spend hours on it. And I even got a timer when it was homework time right after school. I put a timer. I kind of made it a game. I said, okay, you have 30 minutes to do your homework. I'm going to put the timer on. And once the homework is done, once the timer goes off in 30 minutes, no more homework. Because, honey, I want you to have balance in your life. Your life isn't just about school, and you have to stop school and live the rest of your life, have rest, have some enjoyment in your life. So I worked really, really hard in his elementary years. And my mom helped too. She talked to him about how perfectionists are never happy because nothing is ever good enough. And by the time he reached high school, the perfectionism was gone completely. So that is what we can do as parents when when we realize that maybe we're being overly critical, or maybe we're expecting too much, and now our kids are adopting perfectionism, that we can change it for them. We can give them a different message that's healthier so that they are balanced and they feel good about school and about their lives. Okay. Um, and a lot of kids that I work with have anxiety. A lot of it is school anxiety because of feeling a pressure. They may feel a pressure from the teachers. They may feel a pressure from their parents. Because again, it's performance. It's how are you performing and not what are you learning. So I think we in the school system need to change that. And also we as parents need to say, it's about the learning. Don't worry, right? If you can't get it all done, it's okay. Do what you can do, you know, maybe talk to the teacher about it. It's a little too much homework. They can't, my son needs more time. How can I help him? We need to let our teachers know too when too much is too much. And also they can be people pleasing because they want to please their parents. I'm going to tell you, parents, kids want to please their parents instinctively, right? Because they love us. They love us so much. But we don't want them to be people pleasers. We want them to listen to their voice. That is going to bring them where they're supposed to be in life, right? Feeling fulfilled. So but that again is an impact from parenting with unrealistic expectations. And they may not feel good enough. And as I said before, it affects mental health when you don't feel good about yourself, or um, you feel a pressure because your work isn't good enough. And it breaks relationship with parents because nobody wants to be around somebody that is constantly pressuring them. So we have to be mindful of that if we're pressuring them too much, telling them too much what to do. Okay. So how do you change it? How do you change this unrealistic expectations of your parenting? Okay, I shared that I had unrealistic expectations from my parenting and I needed to stop because I recognized that my son was doing things, staying up late. That was the signal for me. Doing homework, that it wasn't good enough was his messaging, right? That's what he told me. He never thought his work was good enough. So how did I feel? I was like, okay, so I don't want my child stressed, right? So how come I'm irritated or I expect so much from my child? What is that about? And then you might need to do a little bit of reflecting on your own childhood and how you were parented, because a lot of times it comes from there, that place, right? That your parents had high expectations of you or gave you the messaging that your work wasn't good enough or wasn't valued, right? Like I got the message I was not valued. My brother's work was valued, but mine wasn't. So when you have that, then you want to overcompensate as an adult. You want to continue to prove yourself. So I was a doer, because I felt unworthy as a child. Then I, as an adult, overdid, you know, took every course, learned everything I could. I couldn't relax. And that is part of having that kind of childhood experience. What I would call is childhood pain, right? Because you didn't feel like you were good enough. And so you pass that to your kids because you want them to excel. But we have to look at our child. And we have to ask our child, how are you feeling? How do you feel about school? Is it too much? We have to ask them because they will tell us. And the goals that they have should be from them internally, what they want to do, because then there's no pressure. When you want to do something, when you want to meet a goal, then it's not coming from someone else. It's coming from internal inside. We want our children to listen to that voice, and to go for their goals. And we are the support, not the pressure, right? And ask yourself what you're asking for. Is it reasonable? Is it reasonable for your child to get straight A's? Is it reasonable for your shy child to talk to everybody? Maybe not. Maybe they're not ready, right? We can't push our kids into what we want if they're not ready, right? I tell this to parents a lot because your child is born the way they're born, right? They might be extroverted or they might be introverted. And we accept our children the way they are. My children are night and day. They're totally different from each other. And so I accept each one as they are. They're not supposed to be a carbon copy of each other. And just because your child is shy doesn't mean they're always going to be shy. So we have to stop parenting with fear. And we have to say to ourselves, maybe that's an expectation that is unrealistic, that they are popular with everybody when they're shy. Okay. So where do our unrealistic expectations come from? Well, they come from our thinking, our thoughts, right? Like, oh, they should be getting A's. It's the should be's, right? They should be making friends. They should be talking to everybody, right? It's the should be's that are affecting the way that we're behaving. So we have to look at those thoughts because the thoughts create the feelings, right? They should be talking to everybody and being popular and social, right? So, but they're not. So now you feel anxious about it and you feel fearful. Like, oh, are they ever going to have friends? How is that going to work? Like, are they going to be like this all the time? And so this parenting, this thought creates fear, these feelings of fear with our kids and in our parenting. And it could be our childhood experiences. We have to reflect on our own childhood experiences. Did our parents parent with fear? Because if they did, then we might parent with fear with our children. And where did these feelings of not good enough come from? Did they come from a time in your childhood? And you still carry that. And that's why you're a doer. That's why you're excelling. That's why you want your kids to be overachievers, right? Because you didn't feel good enough. So we have to think about our thoughts, our childhood experiences, and then if we have these feelings of not good enough, we have to work on ourselves, right? Because we don't want to pass that down to our kids. Okay. How do we change to having realistic expectations of our kids? It's really important in a healthy relationship. I talk a lot about unhealthy and healthy relationships, right? It's really important that we set realistic expectations for ourselves as well as others. Like on some days, we might have a lot of energy and then we can do lots. And other days, we might not feel good. And then we need self care and we need to not expect so much from ourselves. And it's the same thing with our kids. There's going to be times when they're super energetic and can achieve a lot. And there's going to be times where they want to chill. They want to relax. And we need to give them that space because we want them to adopt self care as well. And then we need to communicate openly about what we need. I need to rest. I'm irritable. I know I overdid today. I worked out really hard at work and I'm tired. I need 5 minutes just to lie down, maybe 15 minutes to lie down. And taking care of yourself and having boundaries. Not, we're not machines where we have to keep going and keep going. We can take breaks, have boundaries, and take care of ourselves. And then we also need to practice acceptance and empathy. We need to accept our kids the way they are, not compare them to others. Um, Realize that they come with their own unique gifts and maybe they want to foster those gifts and then we support them, right? We're not putting pressure. We're supporting their ideas, their goals, their wishes. Okay. And we have empathy if they're struggling. Like, it's okay, honey, if you didn't pass that math test. There's going to be another math test. What do you need from me? Do you want me to get you a tutor to help you? What would help? Do you see that's a different conversation than this demanding, that you didn't study enough, right? And it just makes our children feel bad about themselves. Understand that everyone has strengths and limitations and that imperfection is natural and it's part of being human. We're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be perfect. No, there's no perfect parent out there. I'm not a perfect parent. Nobody is a perfect parent. Okay. So we have to be empathetic with ourselves. We make mistakes. We learn. We apologize. We try to do better. And that is how you build relationship. Strong, supportive relationships is being forgiving of each other when you make a mistake and being forgiving of yourself, being kind to yourself. Okay. So goes on to self-compassion and self-esteem. This is really, really important for parents and also for our children to also have self-compassion, okay, and self-esteem. Now, they're two related, but self-compassion is how you are treating yourself. Are you treating yourself with kindness and understanding and acceptance? Do you realize that you cannot be a machine and you can't just keep going and that you need to take moments for rest? And if you fail at something, if you didn't get it right, if you made a mistake, that you're okay with yourself, that you give yourself kindness because you don't have to be perfect, right? You're trying. Acknowledge that you're trying. That's self-compassion. And self-esteem is how do you feel about yourself overall? How do you feel about your work and your confidence in your abilities? I'm going to say, when we're confident, our kids will pick that up. They will come to us because they know mom can handle it. She's confident. Dad can handle it. He's confident, right? So it is a way of being around our kids. And it's also for ourselves to understand that we have abilities and achievements and we can honor those and feel good about ourselves with that. And that is really working on your self-esteem, right? We didn't get it maybe as children, but we want to have good self-esteem as adults because it makes us better parents, right? So that's why it's so important to delve into your feelings of self-worth and fix it. Fix yourself, help yourself to feel good. Be around people that make you feel good about you. Um, be around healthy, good people, good friends that make you feel good and recognize your value. That is going to really help you in your parenting. All right. So that is the end of the presentation. And now I'm going to stop the sharing and um, offer up questions for you parents. Any questions, I'm happy to answer. And I just want to say thank you for joining today. Thank you to School of Humankind for hosting this event. And I have another event coming up on bullying next week. So, parents, you're welcome to join that as well. And if you want to work with me, there is a course that I offer, course and coaching together. It's on the School of Humankind website. And so you can find it under my name. And reach out, contact me. If you need more support, I am here for you. All right, so now it's time for questions. Thank you so much, parents. Take care. We're going to stop the video so we can do questions. Where is it? Here. Thank you, parents, for joining the show today. I hope it was valuable and that you have some useful tools to use with your children. If this show blessed you or changed you in any way, I would appreciate a review on my podcast or subscribe to my YouTube channel, or perhaps you could even recommend our Masterful Parenting to your family and friends. Thank you so much, parents.